Hello, this is the FlexiProject team. When starting to work with the FlexiProject system, it's helpful to configure a few initial settings that will streamline your first steps. If you're just beginning to work with or test the system, we recommend using the Administration tab to adjust these configurations. We will start with the Users tab. Here we will see all the users who currently have access to my system. To add a user, just click Add, enter the email address, and then send an invitation. When I send such an invitation, I will be able to specify what type of license I want to grant to that person. Let's assume that for my user, Jerry, I want to grant a full license. At this point, even when assigning a full license, the system will prompt us to specify the exact permissions for that user. Granting a full license does not automatically provide complete access to all areas of the system. The configuration now includes explicitly defining access rights to specific modules, such as the Projects tab, Programs, and Project Portfolios. Jerry has been assigned the Member Permission level, which means he can only view items specifically assigned to him. However, we can easily modify these permissions if we want to grant him broader access across the system. It's worth selecting the System Administrator option. Then this person will have administrative permissions for all tabs. It's worth doing this, especially when you are testing the system and want to explore all its functionalities. When I click Save, this user will be added to the list as an invited team member. If I wanted to add such a user again, I wouldn't be able to, because the email address is already taken. The invitation will be sent to the user via email. After clicking the activation link in the email, the user will be directed to the application to create their account. This can be done by setting a password for their email address or by authenticating through a Microsoft or Google account. It's important to note that this activation link remains valid for 7 days, after which it expires. So if it takes someone longer than 7 days and they haven't activated the account yet, by clicking on the 3 dots, we can resend such an invitation. If we already have a configured list of users in our system, let's move on to the system settings. Here, the first tab, Organization, allows us to change the basic settings of our organization, such as uploading a logo. Such a logo will be present in many places in the system, for example, in project documentation. We can customize our environment's name and select the default language. This means when users first log into the system, the interface will appear in the administrator's chosen language, English in this case, though users can change it later in their account settings. This section also includes the option to enable two-factor authentication. For now, it is turned off. If I enabled this verification for my entire organization, it would mean that in addition to logging into the system will also ask for a one-time authentication code that will be sent to the user's address. Furthermore, we have the option to set up project roles. Project roles define what specific users can do within the projects they are assigned to. During project execution, different team members should have access to different information and areas of the project, appropriate to their responsibilities. One project role that is always present in the system and cannot be modified is the project manager. The project manager always maintains full permissions to access all tabs and functions within their project. We cannot change this role, nor can we remove it or change its permissions. It is implemented into the system permanently. However, for any other role, such as the project team, I can specify exactly what permissions these members will have within the project. For instance, in my configuration, project team members can view the schedule but cannot access the budget. They will be able to see risks and products, while other managerial functionalities remain hidden from them. Any changes to these settings will apply consistently across all projects. When you log into the system for the first time, some roles will already be predefined for you. Of course, we can modify these permissions as needed. Any changes made will automatically apply to all users in the project who are assigned to that particular role. If I entered a sample project, in the Settings under the Project Role and Permissions tab, I can specify who belongs to my project team. By properly configuring permissions and project roles, all assigned users will receive appropriate access rights based on their designated role. It's important to remember that these permissions are also constrained by the user's license type. If a license doesn't include certain permissions, the system will display a corresponding notification. Additionally, I can create reports filtered specifically by project roles. Let's assume I want to create a report that shows me all the projects where the project sponsor is Daniel Lebert. When I click Filter, the system will show me that there is one such project. We will also use project roles in approval paths. For example, when approving a new plan for a project or documentation such as a project charter, we would like it to undergo proper verification. We would like it to go through the appropriate decision paths, and I am able to choose not only a specific person who will give opinions or decisions on this matter, but also a specific role in the project, which comes from these recorded project roles. Returning to our system settings, I move to the project status. Here we will have a list according to which we will categorize the stage of a given project. We are able to configure this list. To modify project statuses, we can add new elements or remove existing ones, allowing you to customize the list to fit your organization's project management process. We can also rearrange the order of these statuses. It's important to remember that the first status in the list will always be set as the default for new projects. If I go to the list of projects in my organization and group them by project status, I can see that every project has its appropriate status assigned. This status serves as a valuable attribute that we can utilize in various ways, whether for generating reports or building custom views. It's a highly useful feature for gaining a clearer understanding of what stage each project is currently in. Returning to our settings, I will now navigate to the Project Health section. Here we have 3 options. Of course, we can add more to determine the project's condition. This is a subjective assessment by the project manager of how the project is going, whether it's going well or badly. This information will be visible upon entering each project in this place. Using the heart icon, the project manager can set the project's health condition along with a specific description. These condition indicators are visible throughout the system, appearing in project reports, portfolio views, and other relevant sections. Another crucial element is project attributes, which provide additional information about the project. Here, when creating such an attribute, we have the option to choose from several different types. It can be short or long text, a single or multiple choice list, a number, or a date. These attributes, if I go to my project list, are visible in this place. I see here that I have department, priority, project category, and others currently hidden on the list, which we can display here, such as strategic pillar or key suppliers. Using these attributes, I can group the view in this section and also apply them to filter project data. For example, if I filter by high priority, I immediately see all projects marked with that priority level. This allows you to quickly locate the projects that are most relevant to you at any given moment. Using virtually any of these attributes, we can perform such sorting or grouping. If I want to see all attributes assigned to my project, I navigate to the Project Information section. On the right side, I can define these elements and modify them at any time. The system will update the changes immediately. It is worth noting that for project attributes, not all project attributes will be visible in the project list. Some of them will only be visible in the project details. For example, if I go to deployment countries, I can see that here I have the option to mark whether attribute is visible on project lists. If this is enabled, then in the comprehensive list of projects, this attribute will be visible to all users. If I hide it, this attribute will only be visible in the project details. It will be somewhat hidden. Project attributes will also be visible in our project documentation. If I navigate to the sample documentation in my project, specifically to the project charter, I can see that when creating such documentation, the right-hand panel displays project attributes. Once added to the project charter, these attributes will automatically pull in the relevant project information. This integration of project attributes significantly streamlines work with project documentation. Thus, the card will continuously show the current state of a given data attribute, the attributes assigned to a specific project. I also have the option to use my project attributes in reports. Attributes for the schedule will work in a somewhat similar way. Attributes for the schedule will be additional attributes assigned to schedule elements such as tasks. The most basic one will be the department, which will show us which department, which division in our company is responsible for a given task. Here, by adding such an attribute, we are also able to choose from many different options, as well as indicate whether such a field will be mandatory for all schedule elements in my system. Let's assume that I don't want to keep this option connected for now, but rather use it only and exclusively in a few projects. If I go to the project, I can see here that such a department has appeared for me. If I go to the task detail, I can see that I have the option to specify these attributes, the project attributes. If I want specific fields to be visible in my project, I can modify which fields are mandatory across the entire system. In this instance, I can choose to hide certain fields so they don't appear in my project view. This allows us to tailor the schedule fields to the specific needs of each project and work exclusively with the essential information. With the columns, I can also add these details to my schedule view. By adding new columns to my view, we can see that supplier country and task criticality have appeared on the list using these specific attributes. I can, of course, also filter my tasks to display only the view that matches my sorting preferences. Similarly, we can apply this same method when creating reports. Let's assume we want to create a report in which we want to show all tasks assigned to the production department. When I click the filter, I see all tasks in my entire organization, from all projects I have access to, where the production department will be involved. Moving on, if we go to my system settings, the next tab is the Budget tab. Here we have the option to either enable or disable this functionality in the system. If you will not be using the Budget Management module, you can confidently disable this element. It simply will not be visible on the projects. However, this does not mean that the data, for example, the budget data you have already added, will be deleted, but they will only be hidden so you can always return to it. Similarly to deciding whether to enable the budget module across the entire system, we can also define which specific tabs will be available within each individual project during its creation and management. This allows us to customize the interface for each project according to its unique requirements. Adding or hiding tabs in this way can significantly improve our workflow, as users will only see the sections relevant to their work and won't be distracted by unused functionalities. Here in the budget, I select the default currency for my system. I can change how certain expenses will be displayed on budget lists and how. We also decide whether fractional amounts will be allowed. Moving forward, we can also define expense types and identify where costs are generated. If you plan to use the Budget tab and the budgeting features in the system, it's helpful to configure this list according to your needs. This approach helps you organize all income and expense information within the Budget module effectively. It will correspond to your categorization of expenses and your costs. Moving on to the Risks tab, we configure the system settings for risk management. Here we decide whether to enable or disable this module, and we also build and define the probability and impact matrix that will be used for assessing and describing risks across all projects. In the case of probability, we have a 5-level scale, which we can of course modify accordingly, also changing its name. For example, we can create a 3-level scale of probability and impact. By default, it is 5-level. We also have the option to name the categories for risk. How will this affect the project? If we enter an example project and navigate to the Risks tab, we will see all risks assigned to that project displayed on the probability and impact matrix we defined in the system settings. Clicking on a specific area of this matrix will filter the risks accordingly. We can quickly identify the most urgent risks. What does managing individual risks look like? If I open a sample risk, I can specify its probability, impact, and categories in the Details section. We can also use these risk categories to generate reports, showing what risks exist in the system, their assignments, and their respective categories. Moving on, we have the option in System Settings to define whether we will use the Work Time Tracking tab. Here, if it is enabled, this module will be visible on the left side and in projects. We also have the option to send notifications if a task is closed, but no work time is logged for it. If I enable the option to track working time and go to a sample task, when I try to close a task on my list that has no logged work time, the system will notify me that the working time for this task has not been registered and will redirect me to complete the work time registration. This way, we ensure that our employees register their working hours. Moving forward, the Resources tab allows us to enable or disable the resource management functionality. The entire Resources module facilitates work planning by helping manage human resources within our organization. Here we can also specify organization-wide non-working days if needed. Of course, Saturdays and Sundays are excluded from the projects by default as they are not working days. We can add some exceptions here, for example, some additional holidays. In this place, we can also specify which project statuses will be included in the resources. If we want to accurately calculate employee workload across projects, we can specify that only active projects are included in these calculations. Projects with statuses like on hold or interrupted, where work is not currently ongoing, will be excluded from the time allocation. Only genuinely active projects are counted. Further tabs will ask us whether we simply want to use certain modules in the system. In this case, for reviews of scoring, project charters, products, and strategies. We will define whether we want to use the given modules. Moving forward, we have the option to create an integration with Jira. In this case, the system allows us to enable or disable such integration. If we enable it, you will have the option to enable such integration. We'll talk about Jira integration in another video. If, for instance, you use Jira for IT work and would like to import some tasks into the FlexiProject system, that is also possible. Lastly, there's an option for integration with Microsoft Entra ID. If you are using Entra ID in your organization, you may want to import all users from your organization into the FlexiProject system. That covers the essential system settings for getting started. Another important initial task is configuring project documentation, such as the project charter, idea card, or closure report. This project charter template you see here will become the standard format used across our organization. The template will automatically pull basic project information including objectives, schedule details, budget data, and additional project specifications. Essentially, all the content we see here can be customized using the elements available in the right-hand panel. On the right side, you can see numerous project information components that can be added to the document. This enables you to develop your own professional and informative project documentation tailored to your specific needs. So, if I want to include specific information, I can simply add elements using drag and drop. We explore project charter creation in more detail in another video, which I highly recommend. To demonstrate the value of this project charter, let's navigate to a sample project and open the Project Charter tab. Here I can see that a project charter has already been completed and accepted. So this document will look with all the specific descriptions important to me. I can export such a document, send it to other people, or keep it in an external repository if I have the need. However, the system also allows keeping all older archived versions of project charters in one place. If we want to create a new version of this project charter and have it approved by the steering committee, project sponsor, or through another decision-making pathway in the organization, we can send the charter for approval using predefined approval paths. This gives us certainty that the document has been reviewed by the appropriate decision-makers. Let's see how to configure such an approval path in your organization. I enter the PMO Approval Paths tab. I have the option to add a new approval path with its name, description, and the subsequent stages the document will go through. For example, if I want a document's approval path to require approval first from the project sponsor, then from the steering committee, and finally from the PMO director, I can configure this sequence. We can also specify whether each person or role should provide a formal decision or simply review comment on the document without making binding approvals. As you can see, these approval paths can be assigned to either specific project roles or individual people. These configured approval paths will be particularly useful when we need to establish a new baseline for the schedule and budget. In our case, such significant changes will require authorization from this designated group. So if I wanted to request such a new schedule and new budget, I am also able to send the approval through this specific path. Thus, We can be sure that our project plans will always have the appropriate approval. The next element worth examining will be project reviews. As we can see in the project, we have a tab such as Project Review. This means that in my organization, from time to time, a bureaucratic review of all the organization's projects is organized. And the functionality of project reviews allows us to conduct such reviews in an orderly, systematic manner. If I go to such a review card, I see that I have information here that the project manager has filled in specifically for this reporting purpose. As you can see, these review cards are very similar in structure to the project charter. To configure such a reporting card, I navigate to the PMO tab and select Project Reviews. Here, as a manager in the organization, I can view all reviews that have been conducted across my organization. As you can see on the list, in August I conducted a comprehensive review of all projects in my organization. The review includes a graphical summary with various charts and a data overview, showing the status of all projects at that specific point in time. However, after opening such a review card, I can see the detailed information that the project manager provided for this summary meeting. We can customize our project review templates to fit our specific needs. For instance, if we want to establish a standardized monthly review process, we can create and apply a dedicated template for these recurring evaluations. And here, similar to how project cards work, I will decide which elements should be added to such a one-page with a monthly summary in my projects. We will talk more about project reviews in another episode, which I warmly refer you to. One of the very important features that we have in our FlexiProject system is project templates. If you have projects that are carried out in a repetitive manner, some tasks simply repeat. Certain sections, covering budget, risks, and products, will remain consistent across reviews. We can utilize project templates for this purpose. A project template will include predefined information about start dates, end dates, and other standard elements. We can optionally predefine task responsibilities if certain team members in our company are always responsible for specific types of tasks. The template will also include predefined budget elements, risks, and deliverables. Of course, the core functionality will primarily revolve around the project schedule structure. Only the schedule is required to build a template. The remaining elements are not essential for the template and depend entirely on your preferences. When I open the Gantt chart, I can see a preview of how these tasks will progress in relation to working days. It shows exactly how many working days each task and project phase will last. If I wanted to create a new project from a template, I create a new project. I choose the template and set the start date of my project. Next, in the window for creating each new project, I will have the option to select which functionalities I want to enable, as I mentioned earlier. When I click Next, I will see a preview of the schedule, showing how the working days defined in the template translate into an actual timeline based on the chosen start date. After creating a new project from a template, I can continue refining it. This means I can remove certain phases from the schedule, rearrange the order of tasks, or nest them under different phases. The template serves as a starting point for building the final, customized schedule. If we want to create a template from a project, by clicking on the gear, I have the option to create a template from such a project. In the next step, I will have the opportunity to further edit this template before finally saving it. It's also worth mentioning that when setting up new projects, we have the option to create them using AI. This is a very useful new feature, but it's also worth highlighting the capability to import schedules from Excel or MS Project. If you currently manage projects in Excel, you can seamlessly transfer these schedules into our system, where they will be fully integrated and functional. Similarly, we are able to import tasks into our schedule from Excel or MS Project, or import from an existing template. So I also refer you to the video that talks more about import possibilities. That covers the initial system configuration. Thank you very much for your attention. These are the most fundamental first steps for setting up the FlexiProject system. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future content. I warmly encourage you to explore the other tutorials available on our channel.